Have you ever felt like there's too much empty space in your head? Not a lack of thoughts, but a physical absence. Like something that anchored you to the room was carefully scooped out, leaving only a cold, humming draft behind. I'm a writer. David, my husband, was always there. Everything was fine. Until he started moving like he was pulling an invisible weight, dragging his feet as if the floor was made of glue. And I just started to float. Strange, vibrating lightness behind my eyes, making the apartment feel like a paper set I could blow away with a single breath. Hello?
Oh, Mary, you sleep so silently now. You don't even dent the pillow. Have you noticed? You stared into the corner of the room until your vertebrae just snapped. My dog, Box, he found what you abandoned. That heavy, wet thing that kept you tethered. He swallowed it. It's much easier to exist without the friction of being real, isn't it?
In the park, the dogs refused to walk in my shadow. They whined at an empty flower bed. In the grass lay a torn red ball. The color wasn't just bright, it was aggressive, pulsing with a sickening raw vitality. That shade of red, the color of wet, rushing blood, sent a stabbing pain through my nerves. My body was rejecting it. Then, the phone rang.
Stop looking at it. You're choking me with it. I tried to digest what you left behind, but this rot, this leftover humanity, it's killing me. You threw it all away, didn't you? No wonder you stood in front of the mirror with that saw. You wanted the hollow. I exhaled this into the wind for you, Mary. Remember the farm? The soil was always wet. When the sickness came, the adults didn't fight. They drew lots. They shortened their limbs and wrapped themselves in damp hides to forget the burden of standing. They just wanted to graze in the dark. Do you remember what you fed them? You brought them dead crow meat. They choked on it. They'd already forgotten how to consume life. What did you whisper to Grandma when you saw them lying in the mud?
I said, corpses are grazing in the fields. David collapsed against the door. His shoulders sagged under an invisible, crushing pressure. He wasn't just sick. He was absorbing the weight I'd discarded. Gray mucus coated his fingers. I can't hold it up, he wheezed. I locked the hallway door. My head was beautiful, empty, but a frantic tickling started under my ribs. Scratching. Blind, hungry things were spawning in the vacuum I'd left, and they hated the living world. The red vase on the table felt like hot needles in my eyes. The flowers on the wallpaper, they were breathing, radiating a sickening, warm life that hurt to witness. They squeaked louder, a synthetic metallic swarm tearing at the inside of my ribs. The red buds on the wallpaper were mocking me, oozing the poison of existence. I grabbed the blade and slashed, peeling the skin off the plaster, tearing my nails to the blood to exterminate the color, to protect what was growing in the hollow.
Mary, stop it. You're cutting yourself.
I turned around. David stood there, but he was collapsing. his outline melting into a gray, translucent sludge, gravity pulling him into the floorboards. "Don't touch me! Your rot will infect them! Who will feed the vacuum when you dissolve?" David snatched the buzzing phone, pushed me in, and locked the door. "Let me get to him. He took my burden. He has to think for me. Give it to me." In the morning, I woke up. The storm had passed. For the first time, there was crystal silence. The squeaking had stopped. The transition was over. David sat in the corner, holding the smashed phone, utterly exhausted. He said we were going to my grandmother's old farm, a place for things that no longer stand upright.
You need to rest. We don't have to carry it anymore.
I smiled. We got into the car. As we merged onto the highway, I looked at him. A wet, smooth, gray film was sealing his temples. He blinked. Too slowly. The skin fusing together. We drove past the endless, dead spring fields. I looked at the earth, perfectly content, and quietly said, "Corpses are grazing in the fields."
Nobody was actually here. Their bodies occupied space, but their minds were gone. Then, a man collapsed through the closing doors. He looked like he'd been dragged under a freight truck. His suit was caked in mud, his skull caved in, and his skin was stamped with heavy black tire tracks. Yet his mouth was stretched into a frantic grin. Nobody looked up. The bus swung into a turn, and a sleeping girl's head softly fell onto his fractured, bloody shoulder. She didn't wake. She just nestled deeper into the gore of his coat. The man looked directly at me, showing empty, shattered gums, and whispered,
"The asshole is chewing your shadow."
He realized I was the only anchor holding him to reality. Terrified, I hit the emergency tape and threw myself out into the rain. I fled into the subway, but it was just a conveyor belt of ghosts. I squeezed into a packed train car where the air suddenly turned to sulfur and rot. A bloated, waterlogged corpse stepped in, followed by a man burned to a crisp, his skin shedding like gray ash onto the shoulders of the commuters. They just scrolled faster. The ash figure backed me into the corner, his permanent skeletal grin inches from my face.
Midnight sky has no marrow to give you.
I accidentally smashed my shoulder into him, and a thick cloud of soot flew into my face. My fingers came away stained with black, greasy grease. I couldn't breathe. As the train hit the next station, I threw myself through the doors and scrambled back up into the night. I boarded a late-night tram to reach the regional station. The passengers here were worse. A woman with deep black holes like rat burrows in her face, and a clerk with a heavy metal zipper embedded directly into his spine. He slowly turned his head toward me, expecting something.
"Hang your head in the chandelier."
I pulled out my dead phone, staring into the black glass, pretending to scroll just to look like them. But the nightmare followed me onto the final shuttle bus. A woman twice the height of the ceiling bent at a grotesque 90-degree angle directly over my seat. Clicking her
dull gold teeth.
Find your left lung and fry it pitch black.
I hid in the last train. Out of the shadows stepped a skeletal man covered in dull yellow lizard scales, his vertical pupils boring into my mind. I was done running. If they wanted a nightmare, I had to speak their language.
Into the pocket. Drink the sunset from a tin can.
He gave me a formal nod and vanished into the dark. It worked, but the virus took over. Now, my brain won't stop generating the glitching code. Tie the wind into a slip knot. Pave the rain with shattered glass. I can't remember my home, my street, or my own name. I looked into the dark window glass. My reflection isn't human anymore. My eyes are widening. My mouth reshaping to pronounce inverted words. I am just another passenger now. And if you ever look up from your phone, I'll be the one waiting for you.
I bought this house to escape the calls from the hospital. I needed to get away from the ringing phones and the face of that 20-year-old kid I operated on a month ago. Out here, there's not a soul for 5 miles around. Just the wind, the sound of the rain hitting the roof, and this damn house that won't stop sighing. Every joint in these floors creaks. Tonight I heard that sound again. Not a knock, no. It sounded like someone dragging a long, jagged fingernail across the outer wooden siding of the house. Over and over, just pacing back and forth outside. I turned on the old TV to drown out the silence, but even the static noise felt rhythmic now, heavy. As if someone right outside the window was patiently trying to pick the lock I'd fastened hours ago. This morning, I found footprints on the porch. Strange, deep tracks pressed into the damp wood as if someone had been standing in one spot for hours, leaning heavily on one leg. But there were no steps leading up to the porch and none leaving it. By nightfall, the house grew unbearably cold. The old refrigerator in the kitchen was humming loudly, but the rest of the house was dead silent. I checked the thermostat. It was cranked up all the way, yet my hands were numb, and I could clearly see my own breath in the living room. I started to feel a presence, like someone was standing right in the corner of the room, just waiting for me to turn around. And then there was that smell. A sickening mix of old hospital gauze and damp earth. I sat in the armchair, clutching my phone, watching the battery drain to zero. It was dead, just like everything else around here. The old phone on the desk suddenly rang. It cut through the dark like a gunshot. I had no signal, and I had personally ripped the copper cord out of the wall yesterday, but it was ringing. My hands shook so badly I almost dropped the receiver. I pulled it to my ear. There were no words, just heavy, ragged breathing. It was a wet, suffocating sound, exactly like a patient under anesthesia when the oxygen drops and something goes horribly wrong. My chest tightened. I remembered that forceps clamp. It wasn't on the post-op x-ray, but deep down I knew it was somewhere inside his body. I just didn't want to double check. I was too tired, too desperate to go home. The breathing in the receiver suddenly stopped, and a faint voice whispered just one word. Inside. Dawn was breaking, throwing a cold gray light across the room. I walked into the bathroom to wash the cold sweat off my face and froze in front of the mirror. My reflection, it looked different. My skin was pale, almost translucent. On my abdomen, right beneath the skin, a thin, dark purple outline had surfaced overnight. A sharp line tracing the exact shape of that medical clamp, the one I had chosen to simply ignore back then in a rush of sheer arrogance. As I stared, I felt the phantom metal deep inside my gut begin to slowly heat up, burning my organs from the inside out. I didn't die at the hands of a monster. I just realized that all this time, I had been carrying my guilt inside me like a tumor. It had finally decided to cut its way out. The neighbors found me a week later. The report read, spontaneous internal bleeding. Ironic, isn't it? My old colleagues say these things happen, but they didn't see what was lying next to me on the bathroom floor. The very same clamp I had once forgotten in someone else's body. Now it was mine.
There is a professional lie that documentary filmmakers tell themselves to stay sane. That the lens is a barrier. We tell ourselves that as long as we are behind the glass, we are merely observers. We are ghosts in the room. For 5 years, Jax and I lived by that lie. We filmed the rot of the world. Abandoned wards, industrial ruins, places where the air felt like old blood. We thought we were untouchable.
I'm not making this for the channel. The Paradigm Hunters brand is dead. Jax is in a private psychiatric facility now. He hasn't spoken in 42 days. He doesn't eat unless he's forced. He just sits on the floor of his room, staring at the corner where the wall meets the ceiling, his hands locked around his throat like a vice. God help me. Lately I've started doing the same thing. It began with a post on an obscure urban exploration forum. User Vance402. The thread was titled, "She is Getting Taller." It was only live for 6 minutes before the mods nuked it. I managed to scrape the text. It said, "The corners are no longer enough. My husband is already touching the ceiling. Don't look up when you enter. If she thinks you noticed her face, she takes it as an invitation." I traced the IP to a burner VoIP. I called it. A woman answered. Eleonora. She didn't say hello. She just whispered, "Bring a very long tape measure. And then, don't bring anyone you love." I should have known then. I should have walked away.
Harsh transition. The sound of a heavy SUV engine roaring and the rhythmic, aggressive thwack-thwack of windshield wipers fighting a torrential downpour. The visual is grainy dashcam footage. The sky over Akron is a flat, oppressive slate gray. They are driving past miles of skeletal factories and rusted water towers that look like the remains of a forgotten civilization. The rain streaks the glass in long, diagonal slashes.
Look at this place, Ethan. Seriously, it's a cemetery for capitalism. I swear, the GPS has been trying to kill us for the last 20 miles. It keeps telling me to turn around, to recalculate into a ditch. Even the satellites don't want to admit this zip code exists. My gut is doing somersaults, man. This isn't just a spooky location. It feels heavy. Like the gravity here is stronger. It's just industrial decay, Jax. The heaviness is atmospheric pressure. And the fact that we've been in this car for 6 hours. People in dying towns love to invent modern folklore. It gives them a sense of mystery. And the reality is just poverty and lead paint. We're going to Oakwood Heights to find a rational cause. High EMF, black mold, or carbon monoxide poisoning can all cause hallucinations of entities. We stick to the scientific method. We record the baseline, we interview Eleonora, and we provide a logical explanation. Don't let the weather get in your head.
Grief doesn't explain that phone call, Ethan.
I ran the audio file through the spectrograph back at the motel. The background noise, that clicking, it wasn't electronic interference. It had a biological cadence. It sounded exactly like the noise a chiropractor makes when they adjust a cervical spine, but repeated on a loop 50 times a minute. Crack, crack, crack. And Eleonora, she sounded like she was speaking from the bottom of a well. My neck has been stiff since I heard that recording. I feel like I need to crack it every 5 seconds.
The SUV pulls into the parking lot of Oakwood Heights. It is a massive 8-story brutalist block of concrete. It stands alone in a field of dead weeds. Black moisture stains run down the sides of the building like weeping ink. Most of the windows are boarded up with plywood, but the 4th floor stands out. Every window is covered from the inside with thick black industrial plastic bags that billow inward and outward like the building is breathing. The wind howling around the corners produces a low, mournful drum.
Arrival time is 3:42 p.m. The exterior of Oakwood Heights shows catastrophic neglect. No signs of other residents. Jax, get the Pelican cases. I want the infrared, the parabolic mics, and the tape measure. Let's get inside before this rain turns to ice. Keep the camera low for now.
Handheld footage. Shaky and out of focus in the dim light. They enter the lobby. Air, thick with dust and moisture, lit only by a flickering fluorescent tube buzzing overhead. The elevator doors hang open to a dark shaft descending endlessly. The silence feels physical.
Of course the elevator is dead. Ethan, look at the cables in the shaft. Zoom in. They aren't just snapped, they're slagged. Like somebody took a blowtorch to the steel. The ends are melted. All right, stairs it is, but I'm turning the K2 on now. I want to know if we're walking into a microwave.
The lobby smells like wet potting soil and rusted copper. The temperature's dropping. Watch your step. The concrete is slick.
They climb the freezing stairwell. On the second landing, the flashlight reveals frantic tally marks and a message carved into the concrete.
We are on the 2nd floor landing. The ambient temperature has dropped by 12 degrees since the lobby. Jax, look at this. These aren't gang tags. Someone spent hours here, scrimchawing the concrete. The ceiling is hungry? What kind of psychological state leads someone to carve that into a wall on their hands and knees?
Ethan, look at the meter. It's not even pulsing anymore.
It's pegged in the red. 45 milligauss. There are no power lines here. No breaker boxes. My skin is prickling. The hair on my arms is standing straight up. I feel like I'm made of static electricity. And do you hear that? Listen.
The audio track is boosted. From somewhere high above them in the stairwell comes a rhythmic sound. Click. 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 It is the sound of bone on stone. It is perfectly steady.
It's just the building settling, Jax. Thermal contraction. Concrete expands and contracts with the temperature change. We're going to the 4th floor. Don't look up the stairwell. Just keep your eyes on the steps.
They reach the 4th floor. The heavy fire door creaks open with a deafening metallic screech. The hallway is a long, suffocating tunnel. The wallpaper is a grotesque 70s floral pattern, peeling in long, curling strips that look like dead skin. The silence is heavy, pressing against their eardrums. They reach the door to 402. Ethan knocks. It sounds like a gunshot.
Eleonora? It's Ethan and Jax. We spoke on the phone.
The sound of a dozen deadbolts clicking open. The door groans open. Eleonora Vance stands there. She's a ghost of a woman. Her skin translucent, her eyes bloodshot and fixed firmly on the floor. She refuses to look up at their faces. She is wearing a thick wool scarf, despite the stifling heat inside the apartment.
You brought the camera. Good. She likes the red light. It looks like a drop of blood in the dark. Come inside. Close the door. Don't let the draft in. The draft makes her sway. And she hates when the world moves.
Eleonora, thank you for letting us in.
We want to help you figure out what's happening. But I have to ask, why are you sitting on the floor?
The camera pans the living room. Every piece of furniture, the sofa, the coffee table, the chairs, has had its legs sawed off. The furniture sits 3 inches from the floor. The apartment is stiflingly hot, the air thick with humidity that fogs the camera lens. Jax wipes it clean, his hand shaking.
We had to lower the eye line. Gary started it. He said the ceiling was getting closer, but he was wrong. He was just getting taller. He had a growth spurt last night. His joints wouldn't stop popping. He's in the spare bedroom now. He's resting. He's reached the corner, you see. He doesn't have to reach anymore.
Ethan, look at the kitchen. What the hell is that?
Camera moves into the kitchenette. The refrigerator door seal has melted. The rubber has liquefied and reformed into hard, cascading ripples. Inside, the food is covered in a thick, vibrating blanket of black mold that seems to pulse with a life of its own. On the kitchen table, which is also sawed down to the floor, sits a single, long tape measure. It is extended to 6 feet, and the end is stained with something dark and sticky.
She's systematically removing any reason to look up. Psychological avoidance on a structural level. Jax, look at the bathroom door frame. Shine the light up there.
The camera tilts up. Above the doorframe, reaching almost to the ceiling, are 5 massive vertical gouges carved deeply into the plaster. They aren't tool marks. They are the width of human fingers, but the span is 3 times the size of a normal hand. The wood is splintered, as if something was hanging from it with immense weight.
Those are scratch marks, Ethan. Something was holding onto the door frame, fighting to keep from being pulled up. I'm not staying here. We need to leave.
Not yet. I need to see Gary's study. I need the journal.
They sneak toward the office. The clicking grows louder. Ethan opens the door. Inside, freezing cold. Distorted spine drawings cover the desk. He opens the journal. The handwriting is frantic.
Listen to Gary's last entries. October 21st. The pain is a white fire. It starts at the base of my skull and pulls toward the stars. I measured myself today. I am 6'7". Yesterday I was 6'4". My neck is so thin I can see the light through it. Eleanor won't look at me. She says I look like a serpent. In the last entry, Jax, it's just one sentence over and over. The vertebrae won't stop cracking. The vertebrae won't stop cracking. The sky is lonely.
Put it there. The EMF meter just died, Ethan. The screen cracked from the inside. There's something in this room. I can feel the air pulling at my hair. We have to go!
A sudden, violent thud shakes the entire apartment. It comes from the living room. It sounds like a heavy weight being dropped from the ceiling. They run back into the living room. Eleonora is sitting in the center, but she has turned her chair. She is now facing the corner where the walls meet the ceiling. The amber light of the lamp flickers, casting a long, distorted shadow of her body onto the wall. The shadow's neck is beginning to elongate, stretching up toward the dark molding.
Eleonora? What was that? We're leaving, and you're coming with us, now!
You cannot leave. The sky has noted your bones. She thinks you are pliable, Ethan.
It has me. Ethan, look at the shadow. It's not hers.
The camera captures the shadow on the wall. A second shadow, featureless, with an impossibly long neck, emerges from the ceiling's darkness. It reaches down and touches Jax's shadow. Jax's head jerks violently upward. The sound of a dozen dry branches snapping, crack, 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 fills the room. Jax's neck visibly elongates by 2 inches in a second. He screams, a wet, choking sound.
The window! Jax, the window!
Ethan grabs the heavy metal tripod and swings it into the living room window. The glass shatters. He shoves Jax through the opening onto the fire escape. He dives out after him. As he falls, the camera catches one final frame. Eleanor's head is now pressed flat against the ceiling. Inside her, a massive pale light with 2 many joints reaches out from the dark. The footage cuts to black. Silence for 10 seconds. Then, the scene fades back to Ethan in his studio. He is sitting closer to the camera now. His neck is wrapped in a thick scarf. He looks like a man who has already died, but hasn't realized it yet.
We didn't go to the police. How could we? They found the apartment empty. No Gary, no Eleonora. Just a pile of teeth on the floor and 60 feet of human vertebrae in the water tower on the roof. They called it a unexplained disappearance. But horror isn't a ghost, Jax. It's a seed. Once you see the stretch, your body remembers it.
I went to the doctor yesterday.
yesterday. For my entire adult life, I was 5'10". Yesterday, they measured me at 6'2". My spine clicks when I breathe. I can't sleep in a bed. I have to stay on the floor, curled in a ball, because if I straighten out, I feel it. The hook under my jaw. The pulling.
Don't look up. The screen cuts instantly to black. The final sound is the wet, repetitive clicking of bone.
I finally bought my dream house in the isolated village of Romanovka. While cleaning the living room, I found a strange black and white portrait of an old man hanging above the sofa. He was grinning creepily, his face drowning in unnatural low-angle shadows. I couldn't stand his gaze, so I took it down and hid it in the attic next to a crate of rotting rat pelts. The moment I climbed back down, a deafening kick shook my front door.
Hey, who's out there? You out of your mind?
No one was on the porch. Just a locked gate and an envelope on the steps. Inside, a jagged handwriting read, "Rules of the house. Rule number 1, never remove the portrait from the wall." I figured it was a dumb local prank. Crumpled the paper and went to sleep.
During the night, the house came alive with heavy footsteps and a raspy cough. I woke up drenched in sweat. The air was like a sauna, and the wallpaper was peeling. The gas boiler was roaring furiously. Someone had turned the valve to the maximum. Burning my fingers, I forced it down and threw the windows open to breathe. Another envelope was waiting on the porch. Rule number 2. Keep all windows and doors closed.
No way. This is my house. I will break your damn rules.
I left the windows open out of spite. Suddenly, a horrific screeching broke out. A landslide of rats poured through the windows. But they were skinless, naked, crimson bodies covered in oozing blood. They fell by the hundreds, biting my legs. I screamed mindlessly, smashing them against the walls with a metal dustpan. The room turned into a butcher shop. Somehow I shoved them out and slammed the window shut, my limbs covered in swollen bites. I had enough. I rushed into the hallway to run, but the front door was gone. In its place stood a solid wall. I dashed to the kitchen, grabbed a stool, and smashed it into the window. The glass shattered into a web of cracks, and a second later it became perfectly whole again. I was trapped. With trembling hands, I dialed emergency services. It started ringing, but a heavy, glitchy voice came from the speaker.
Luke, welcome.
I dropped the phone, and it immediately died. A third envelope lay on the floor. Rule number 3, no phone calls. In that exact second, daylight outside instantly switched off. A pitch-black night fell and all the lights died. The only illumination left was the tiny blue flame inside the gas boiler.
Footsteps echoed in the darkness. Someone entered the room. Backward, like a videotape rewinding. He stood with the back of his head facing me, his shoulders trembling with a vile laughter. And then, without lifting his feet, he unnaturally bent his spine backward. His upside-down, crazed face straight from the portrait ended up just an inch away from mine.
How do you like it in my house? In my house. In my house!
I squeezed my eyes shut and stayed silent until the entity vanished at dawn. A new envelope was on the windowsill. Rule number 5. Do not ask me for anything. But then I made a fatal mistake. I saw a man walking outside in the blizzard. Instinctively, I pounded on the glass and screamed for help. The man turned around. It was the owner from the portrait, wearing that same twisted smile. Time outside froze. The snowflakes hung static in the air. That very second, the boiler died, turning the house into a frozen crypt. Realizing I was dying from the extreme cold, I used the last of my strength to crawl into the attic. I grabbed the portrait and nailed it back to its rightful place in the living room. Total icy darkness consumed me. An invisible voice whispered in the dark, "Do you want to leave? I'll show you the back door." I kept my mouth shut. I woke up on the couch in the morning. Everything was back to normal. Windows boarded up, no rats, and the front door was back. I ran outside like a lunatic. The nightmare had lasted less than 24 hours, but my interest in country life vanished forever. 5 years later, I drove back to look at it. It hadn't changed. But through the cracks of the boarded windows, a pale light was still glowing from within. On paper, the house is mine. But its true master is someone else entirely. My car engine started knocking badly right in the middle of a deserted highway. I had to pull into Raven's Creek, a tiny decaying hole in the wall. A man in his 50s in a filthy plaid shirt was sitting on a porch, staring at me with pure hostility.
"You need to get the hell out of here, kid. Get back in your car and drive."
My engine is broken and it's getting dark. I'll just spend the night, fix it tomorrow, and leave.
Fine. Take the keys to the empty house down the road. Lock the deadbolt and do not look out the windows tonight.
We walked past another house, and a woman was standing on the porch. She was staring straight at us with giant, wide-open eyes. She didn't blink once. I locked myself in the bedroom and fell asleep in total dread. At dawn, I headed to my car, but saw an old couple whispering over something in the grass. It was a dead body. An old man with a massive mole on his cheek, eyes wide open, jaw dropped.
"The collector will take old Billy tonight, and then he will bring him back."
I bolted to my Chevy and gasped. All 4 tires were slashed to pieces with deep, brutal cuts. Someone trapped me here. I ran to Graham's house, screaming.
Graham! Someone destroyed my tires! Who did this?
I told you not to stay. Walk 50 miles through the woods to the highway, or wait 2 days for Vic's supply truck. And remember, lock your doors. If you go out at night, they will tear you apart.
I stayed inside. At midnight, heavy steps echoed from the street, along with the loud clank of chains. I peeked through the curtain. A giant figure in a black cloak was walking down the road, dragging the dead body of old Billy by his hair.
The next morning, I stepped outside and froze. Old Billy was standing by his house, rocking side to side, staring at me with a monstrous ear-to-ear grin. I sprinted back to Graham's house. "Graham, the dead man is alive! He's smiling at me! What is this place?
That's the body collector. He brings the dead back, but they're no longer human. They're hollow, twitching, aggressive monsters. Sometimes he sews parts of different corpses together to create multi-limbed freaks that hunt at night. There are barely any real humans left here. Go back inside.
On the second night, Graham didn't open his door. Instead, a creepy hunchback stepped out of the fog, hissed that Graham was gone, and laughed. Suddenly, the whole village erupted into manic laughter as dozens of smiling locals emerged from the dark. I sprinted toward the exit of the village.
Vic's truck arrived, but the cloaked collector immediately approached it. Vic stepped out of the cabin, his body jerking like a broken puppet.
Ground delivery loads.
The collector opened the back of the truck. It was piled to the ceiling with fresh human corpses. The monster grabbed one body, made a chilling chain sound, and the corpse let out an unearthly shriek, immediately biting chunks of flesh out of a nearby villager. Multi-limbed abominations crawled out of the shadows. I dragged myself back into the tall grass and sprinted blindly into the fields.
I ran for an hour, tripped in the dark, and smashed my head against a sharp rock. When I woke up at dawn, my mind was a chaotic blur. I saw a traveler with a backpack walking across the field. I stumbled toward him, my legs twitching, my body moving awkwardly. A strange emotion flooded my brain. My lips stretched into a massive ear-to-ear grin. I burst out laughing, unable to blink or take my eyes off the terrified traveler. I couldn't remember my own thoughts anymore, and I didn't even notice that the deep wound on my head was now roughly stitched together with thick black thread. It didn't matter. Smiling widely, I jerked forward, walking straight toward him.
Sheriff Miller, good morning. I am writing on behalf of the investigator. Attached are the written statements from the suspect in the recent incident. We think he might be connected to your ongoing investigation. Please review them and send a reply.
A village street at night is very different from the daytime, especially in winter. When the sun goes down, the darkness makes the whole place feel completely empty and cold. I rarely came here during the cold months, as my parents usually just sent me to my grandparents' house for 3 months in the summer. Years later, my grandparents passed away, my parents got a divorce, and I ended up working a stressful office job in the city. Eventually, I quit, packed some canned food, and took a taxi out to the old family house to get away from everything. I spent the first day shoveling the path and turning on the gas heater. Around 6 p.m., I turned on the outside light and heard the gate click. My childhood friend Andy, who lives 2 houses down, came to visit. I went out to the porch and invited him inside.
Yuri, you're back?
I made some tea, and we sat at the table playing chess and talking about our lives. Around 9 p.m., I looked through the window into the illuminated yard. Near the trees in the garden, I noticed a tall silhouette, standing completely still. I told Andy that I thought someone was out in the garden.
Close the curtain. Do it right now. Why? Just close it. Don't look at him.
I was terrified, so I reached out and pulled the curtain shut. Andy went into the hallway and turned off the yard light so the window wouldn't be lit up anymore. I asked him who was out there.
That's Mercer.
An old man who died back in the 80s. People said he was a sorcerer who cursed the locals. Right before he died in November, he put his hand on the water tower, whispered something, and fell dead. They buried him outside the cemetery with 40 nails in his coffin, but people say his power leaked into the water. The old locals claim that when the ground freezes, he gets too cold in his grave and walks the streets knocking on windows. We have to lock everything after dark, because if he sees your face, he will kill you.
Hearing that made me panic, and I started crying from terror. I asked him in a whisper if the person had left the yard, and he didn't answer. He just stepped forward onto the creaking floorboards, reached for the curtain, and pulled it back. He immediately let out a loud scream. A gray, wrinkled face was pressed right against the glass, with dark eyes and a wide smile.
Get back!
I was completely frozen. Then I remembered something terrible and yelled to Andy that the back door to the hallway was unlocked. Right then, we heard a loud slam from the corridor. Someone had just entered the house.
Andy ran to the room door and held the handle tightly while someone on the other side tried to pull it open. He yelled at me to break the window and jump. I grabbed a ceramic mug from the table, smashed the glass, and cleared the frame. When I looked back, Andy was losing his grip and turning purple. I climbed out into the snow, and Andy tried to follow me, but someone grabbed him by the collar from the dark room and dragged him back inside.
Help me.
I picked up a sharp piece of the broken wooden window frame, climbed back up, and stabbed the intruder in the back. His jacket tore, revealing a pale, bloodless body. The man didn't stop. He wrapped his hands around Andy's neck and squeezed. I heard a sharp crack as Andy's neck broke.
I ran down the dark street straight to Andy's house, went inside, and locked his heavy metal door. I collapsed on the floor under the icons, found his landline phone, and managed to dial 112 to tell them someone was being murdered. Right then, there was a heavy knock on the front door.
Yuri, open up. The earth is cold, and my nails are gone. Let me in. I want to rip your throat.
The voice sounded wrong, almost like it was playing inside my head. I panicked, found a bottle of holy water on the shelf, and took a few gulps. Outside, a loud voice shouted for me to wait because it was coming in. I looked through the peephole and saw Mercer walking through the snow with Andy's body over his shoulder, heading back toward my house. My stomach hurt from panic, so I went to the bathroom, washed the ice off my feet, and drank a glass of vodka from the fridge to stop shaking. That was my mistake. When the police arrived, they thought I was just drunk and refused to listen to me. They handcuffed me and put me in the back of the car. I didn't resist them. I actually went out to meet them and showed them exactly where Andy's body was lying. Please read these notes again and move me to a different precinct. It isn't safe here. I feel like he is inside my head now. And he is coming for me.
I graduated with honors, hoping to be a good geography teacher, but I failed. I have a soft voice and a skinny frame, so the kids made me a joke. They mocked me, ignored me, and completely broke my spirit. Eventually, I just packed my bags and left the city. I moved to this isolated forest village called Silent Creek.
Honestly, I chose it mostly because of the name. It made me think of Ferdinand Magellan. He named the Pacific Ocean because it stayed calm for 3 months while he crossed it. But Magellan was wrong. The Pacific is actually violent and deadly. I just hoped this village wouldn't be the same. Wait, what the hell is that?
Hit 10 p.m., and the whole village just went dead. No cars, no people. Even the stray dog stopped barking. And right out there, near the tree line, I saw 3 incredibly tall, pale figures. They walked strangely, crossing the road before melting back into the woods. I don't know, maybe I'm just losing my mind from this cheap wine.
My head was splitting the next morning. I went to the local grocery shop to get some food and overheard 2 older women talking in line. They said a local guy named Johnny was dragged into the woods last night.
They found what was left of him this morning. Just his head and a tattooed arm. Those things from the woods ate the rest. They always go for the organs first.
Hearing that made me sick to my stomach. I walked around the village all day trying to clear my head, and I didn't realize how late it was getting. Suddenly the streets cleared out again. I checked my watch. 9:46 p.m. A sudden wave of dread hit me, and I started running back to my apartment building. Oh God, it's right behind me. This massive, pale creature was sprinting right at me. Its movement was completely unnatural. Its neck was horribly thin, and its mouth was just a giant black void. I managed to slam the building door right in time. Immediately, this awful smell of swamp rot and mold filled the hallway, and I heard a distant wail outside. It sounded just like a ship's foghorn.
Listen to me, kid. After 10 p.m., you stay away from the windows. Don't even breathe loud. Those things are out there hunting. If they see your face and memorize it, they will track you down and gut you. 17 people have gone missing here in 3 years, and the cops don't care. Just stay inside.
I spent the whole evening sitting in the dark, paralyzed. Then, out of nowhere, crash! A heavy wooden log came flying through my living room window. That same awful smell of swamp rot instantly flooded the apartment. No! Stay back! Get away from the window! This impossibly long, thin hand reached through the broken glass, clawing at the frame. Outside, I could see another monster standing in the distance, howling and pointing a long arm straight at my apartment, basically calling its pack. I panicked, grabbed a heavy metal coat rack, and smashed it down onto the creature's hand. It felt like hitting rotten wood. There was no blood, but it howled and pulled its arm back outside. I hid out in a local hotel, but I couldn't sleep at all because of the nightmares. When I went back to my apartment the next day, the place was completely destroyed. The furniture was smashed, the windows were gone, and there were giant, muddy footprints everywhere. I immediately called a taxi. I needed to get out of this place right away. The police covered up what happened in our village. I'm writing this because people need to know. 2 years ago, me and my friends, Cash and Vance, were in my backyard. We were waiting for my grandparents to dig up the garden. Hours earlier, the local sorcerer died by the cemetery. He climbed the fence, screamed, and deliberately impaled his eyes on the sharp metal spikes. It was horrific.
Hey, Max. Let's sneak there. I call it Incident C for cemetery.
Vance just laughed, but Cash was dead serious. Suddenly, my grandmother walked into the garden alone. She was crying and shaking.
Kids, go home right now!
My friends ran off. Grandma dragged me inside, frantically praying. She started locking everything and throwing salt at the door. I
thought she was losing her mind.
Grandma, look at me. What are you afraid of?
Max, close the curtains. Do it fast.
I looked out and saw our front gate wide open. I panicked, reached for the curtain, and accidentally ripped it off its hooks. The window exploded. A pale, burnt face with hollow yellow holes instead of eyes crawled inside. It grabbed my collar. Grandma lunged with a wooden stool and smashed its skull. Maggots poured out. I threw up, and she dragged me away.
Grandma told me to hide in the attic. Suddenly, our dead neighbor appeared outside. He had no arms, so he couldn't climb in. But he let out a deafening screech.
Get up to the attic, now!
I scrambled up the ladder. Grandma hesitated, waiting for Grandpa. Suddenly, the second window shattered. A bloated corpse named Marcus burst in. He knocked over the ladder and violently tore into my grandmother. I slammed the hatch and piled heavy junk on top. Marcus was slamming his head against the hatch, shoving his bloated hand through the gap. I repeatedly drove a pitchfork into his fingers. Staying meant death. I forced open the back attic door, swung my legs out, and jumped. I slammed into the dirt, tearing my knee to the bone, but scrambled up and ran into the fields. I found Cash by the barn. His ear was mangled and bleeding. He was sobbing, screaming that they ate his mom. Suddenly, the armless corpse charged us. We knocked it down and stomped its head into the mud. We hid in the clinic. 10 minutes later, Marcus tracked us down. He forced the door open, but tripped. Cash drove medical shears straight into the corpse's eye. I ran out, threw a bottle of alcohol at a smiling dead woman in the window, and rushed for the exit. A skeleton grabbed me, tearing my arm. I smashed my head against the doorframe, blacking out just as Grandpa burst in with a shotgun.
I woke up in a hospital. My mom was crying, saying it was over. Then I noticed my right arm was strapped to the bed. My life is ruined now. My parents keep me locked in a tiny flat. They follow me everywhere. I saw Cash once. He looked at me like I was a lunatic. They say my grandparents are fine, but they're lying. That sorcerer cursed us. I still can't remember the name of my village.